Did you know that roughly 40% of autistic kids have at least one anxiety disorder? 40%. But honestly, here's the truly startling part. For a lot of these kids, that massive, overwhelming anxiety, it's just hiding right in plain sight.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today. You know, if you're a parent of a neurodivergent kid somewhere between the ages of 4 and 16, you already know that trying to understand your child's behavior can sometimes feel, well, it's like trying to solve a really complex mystery, right? You just don't have all the clues. So today, we're going to frame our journey exactly like that. As a detective story, we're going to use the latest science to unmask the hidden anxiety that's so often lurking right behind those everyday neurodivergent behaviors. And more importantly, we're going to give you the actual tools to spot it.
Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, the hidden anxiety epidemic. Okay, before we even dig into the numbers here, I want to validate something for you right out of the gate. If you've been just exhausted trying to figure out why your child is struggling, look, you're not alone, and it is definitely not your imagination. The hard data from major meta-analyses totally proves the massive scale of this issue. Let's look at a cornerstone 2011 meta-analysis by Van Steensel and colleagues. It breaks down how anxiety actually manifests for autistic youth. Now see that biggest slice? Specific phobias take up roughly 30%. That's huge! Then it's followed by OCD and social anxiety, both hovering around 17%. So what's the absolutely crucial takeaway here? It's that specific phobias are literally the most common anxiety disorder among autistic youth. It's not just some general vague worry about the world. It is very often an intense, specific fear that's completely dominating their day.
And you know what? This hidden epidemic extends way beyond autism. A massive 2025 systematic review by Njardvik and colleagues looked at over 40,000 youth with ADHD. 40,000! And the findings are striking. They found that roughly 18% of kids with ADHD have anxiety disorders, and about 11% have specific phobias. This basically establishes that ADHD carries a major and frequently overlooked anxiety comorbidity. So if your child has ADHD, anxiety might just be this invisible passenger in the car, secretly driving a lot of their reactions and behaviors.
It's also crucial to remember that one-size-fits-all assumptions, well, actually scratch that. They completely fail when we look at neurodivergent youth. Research from Van Steensel and Heeman back in 2017 confirmed that while anxiety levels in autistic kids are substantially higher than in typically developing peers, those levels fluctuate significantly based on the child's age and IQ. Literally, every child's profile is entirely unique, and that means their anxiety is going to leave a totally unique fingerprint. What causes severe panic in one child, it might not even register for another.
Moving right along to Section 2, hiding in plain sight.
So we're transitioning now into the disguise phase of our detective story. Think about it. If these statistics are so incredibly high, why is this massive epidemic constantly missed by standard anxiety checklists at the pediatrician's office? Well, a crucial paradigm shift based on research by Kearns and colleagues in 2014 gives us the exact answer. You see, traditional anxiety involves things like fearing a math test or worrying about social judgment, right? But neurodivergent anxiety takes completely atypical forms. We're talking intense distress at a slight routine change, idiosyncratic phobias that just seem a bit unusual, or fears specifically tied to a special interest. Because it doesn't look like the standard worry we're all taught to look for. It just frequently gets mislabeled as, oh, that's just autism, or they're just acting out.
The core engine behind so much of this distress is a concept called intolerance of uncertainty. And honestly, it is exactly what it sounds like, but turned all the way up to a 10. It's an intense, truly debilitating distress triggered simply by not knowing exactly what will happen next. So when an autistic or ADHD child reacts severely to a change in plans, it's not them being difficult or stubborn, not at all. It is a profound neurological intolerance of uncertainty that is fueling a massive, overwhelming anxiety spike. Their brain literally perceives the unknown as an immediate physical threat. So the crucial point here is knowing exactly how to spot the disguise. Here are the really loud clues that your child isn't just acting out, but is actually terrified. We see explosive meltdowns, intense rigidity, total avoidance of a task, maybe somatic complaints like suddenly getting a stomachache right before school, or a major behavioral escalation whenever a transition or change happens. When you see this list of behaviors popping up, well, it's time to put on your detective hat. You aren't looking at defiance, you are looking at fear.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Parent Action Guide.
All right, we've defined the problem. Now we really want to empower you. How exactly do you adapt your support to fit your child's highly unique neurological wiring? Well, here is your 4-step science-backed action plan. Step 1, decode the behavior. Always stop and ask yourself, what is this child afraid of or uncertain about right now? Step 2, increase predictability. Step 3, adapt your exposure strategies. And step 4, reduce their sensory load during anxious moments. Let's break down how to actually apply the most impactful steps here.
Going back to that intolerance of uncertainty we talked about, the absolute best way to tackle it at the source is to aggressively increase predictability. You do this by utilizing visual schedules, giving plenty of advanced warning before a change happens, and establishing very clear, concrete routines. See, when the child knows exactly what is coming, their brain stops sounding the alarm, and the anxiety level just drops dramatically. You are essentially removing the threat of the unknown from their environment.
Now, this next point is absolutely vital. Standard neurotypical anxiety advice often tells you to just face your fears, right? We've all heard that. But if you force exposure without preparation on a neurodivergent kid, it will almost certainly backfire into a massive meltdown. You really must not push them into an overwhelming situation without adapting to their communication and sensory profile first. You have to use much smaller steps, highly concrete language, and seamlessly integrate their specific sensory tools during anxious moments to help them stay regulated. And finally, Section 4, Why Assessment is Hard.
Before we wrap up, I really want to validate for every single parent watching just how difficult it is to untangle these behaviors. Take a look at this observation from researchers Vasa and Mazurek back in 2015. They note, distinguishing anxiety from autism and ADHD traits requires care due to communication differences and trait overlap. It's so true. The standard screening tools simply have limits here. It is genuinely difficult to separate a core neurodivergent trait from an anxiety response, which is exactly why trying to figure this out alone is nearly impossible. Because it is so complex, we do need to establish a firm boundary. This explainer is purely educational, not diagnostic. You should never, ever attempt to diagnose your child on your own based on what we've covered today. Instead, you must partner with a professional, specifically a clinician who is experienced with and affirming of neurodivergent youth. They have the specialized tools and the training to figure out exactly what's happening beneath the surface.
I want to leave you with a thought to really reflect on today. What hidden fear is driving your child's behavior right now? When they dig their heels in later this afternoon, just pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself that question. You might just uncover the anxiety that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, Fear Me Not helps kids conquer fears through science-backed play.